All right. That music cracks me up a little bit. Yeah. Our NFL coverage today brought to you by Michelob Ultra. Enjoy an ice cold Michelob Ultra tonight as you watch Jason's Minnesota Vikings take on the Philadelphia Eagles for tonight's game on Prime. We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone ESPN. Our guests join us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. And we welcome in Steve Palazzolo, NFL Insider, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. Steve P., how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, as always.
Yeah, man. So I'm an empty nester now, and my wife's been at the beach all week. So it's just been me and the dog. And I've just been cooking steaks every night and playing the music really, really loud. What do you think?
Oh, that's beautiful. Because, I've got 4 more kids than you at the moment. So, yeah, we're not doing that. That's great. That's a good week. I thought you were going to say you, rewatched every college football, NFL game the entire week just to, take it all in.
Well, I've done 3. I rewatched Mississippi State, Arizona, Ole Miss, Tulane, and Bama, Texas. So I know you're always NFL, or 99% of the time. But did you take a peek or watch Texas at Bama?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I watched quite a bit of that game, and it was impressive by Texas. I thought they did great, and I think the quarterback issue in the SEC is just one of those cyclical things. The quarterbacks in the SEC just down this year, and I think that's probably why the conference feels down this year so far.
Are you ready to call it that Quinn Ewers will be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft over Caleb Williams?
No, absolutely not. Because I stayed up to watch Caleb Williams too, and he's out of this world right now. So it's still Caleb Williams.
Yeah, he is out of this world. Okay, speaking of, let's talk NFL quarterbacks. And again, you nailed it a couple of weeks ago with the yelling shows always want to pick apart Dak or whatever's going on. Steve Palazzolo, can you imagine if Dak Prescott had played like Joe Burrow or Josh Allen? They would, on the yelling shows, even 4 days later this morning, they would still be talking about how poorly he played.
They absolutely would. And again, the nuance there is there's so much equity built up for Josh Allen, for Joe Burrow, that we know not to overreact to those things. But yeah, we also know not to overreact when Dak does it. So yeah, it would be a little different, I think.
How would you describe, you're right there in Cincinnati, so you've lived this renaissance and everything that's happened with Burrow and the culture and the franchise, which is awesome. Were you shocked? Were you surprised at the way Joe Burrow played last weekend?
I think there was a combination of things, though, because he hadn't practiced, so that's certainly a factor. And a lot of the misses, there was a lot of miscommunications, and so that was one of it, lack of practice time. Then the fact that there's rain, and it was really difficult to throw the ball for Deshaun Watson as well. I think a lot of times as fans and analysts, we just forget that the elements actually mean something, and a lot of people just look at the stat line, and it's like, oh, this was bad. And it was bad, but there were other factors at play. And then the third one was Joe Burrow was just bad, and so he was rusty, there's rain, he just wasn't good, and the Browns were really good. And so might be my biggest takeaway, was that Browns defense, they finally invested in the defensive line, and Myles Garrett has other people to rush the passer right now. They have a new defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, who's really good at creating a pass rush, and they just wreaked havoc up front against the Bengals. So I think a lot of things came together for the stat line that Joe Burrow had. And in the other part of it, in Cincinnati, they've had these bad games before under Zach Taylor, and they've always bounced back. So, want to see them be able to do that again. They've had these losses that seem like they're demoralizing, but they haven't been. They've done a great job of righting the ship. So let's see if they can lean into that history here moving forward in Cincinnati.
Okay. I got a little tidbit for you on Zach Taylor. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. The new athletic director at Mississippi State, his name is Zach Selman, and he played at Wake Forest, and he is close friends with Zach Taylor, who also went to Wake Forest. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Small world over here.
I know.
Zach Taylor became a hero because he would go to all the local pubs and everything in Cincinnati after games and hand out game balls. So he was just like running around town, hanging out with the fans after games and everything. So people started to love him over the last couple of years.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
He hit up my favorite burger joint a couple of years ago. It was great.
Wow. Okay. Sean Payton did the same thing when he was in New Orleans, Steve.
That's not surprising.
Yeah.
Seen Sean out and about.
I can't imagine how many places, but I know that he would dive into Lucy's in the warehouse district and have some fun. And you know how, man, you become a magnet and the connectivity there when the locals see you at a bar or restaurant through the roof. I did not realize Zach Taylor did that. All right, let's go to Josh Allen before we get to Dak Prescott. What did you see from Josh Allen's performance last weekend, Steve?
I mean, it was a disaster. I mean, it was so bad because Aaron Rodgers gets hurt and Zach Wilson takes over and the Jets can barely move the ball and the Bills have the lead and all Josh Allen has to do is manage the game and not do anything stupid. And he did something stupid 4 times. And so that's an issue. Like I think a lot of, again, the yelling shows. If they're citing just overall turnovers for Josh Allen over the last couple of years, I don't think that's telling the whole story because much like Dak's interceptions last year or Josh Allen's turnovers, you can actually live with turnovers because Josh Allen is special otherwise. It's not like he's just throwing every game. He is bringing a ton of value to the table. But on Monday night, the turnovers were literally the reason why the Bills lost. And it was Allen in just, hey, it's 3rd and long, let me, chuck one into double coverage, or it's even I can run the ball for a first down or take a shot at a first down, or I could throw it into double coverage. Or it's week 1 and I'm running along the sideline and I could step out of bounds, or I can lower my shoulder and get popped for an extra yard. It's that type of decision making that I think Josh Allen needs to figure out a way to control himself. When Tom Brady, I won't get into it too much, but Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, we have this chart that shows how aggressive QBs should be when they're leading versus when they're behind. And if you look at the chart, it's like, hey, when you're leading, you're a little bit less aggressive. When you're behind, you take more chances. And if you draw it as a curve, it was like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were perfect. They had the perfect level of aggressiveness for the game situation. You actually have someone like Aaron Rodgers, who's actually not as good in comeback situations, who is more conservative when he's supposed to be aggressive, throwing the ball down the field in comeback situations, and he's not as good as Brady or Manning in those situations. So my point there is Josh Allen has this like nonstop aggression at all times, and he needs to figure out how to manage the game properly. And that was my biggest takeaway the other night, is he needs to control himself in a game where all he needed to do was take care of the ball and the Bills win, and instead he threw the game away.
Man, I'm surprised in that league with the way it's run and the coaching that Sean McDermott, I guess, this is very simplistic, but allowed it to happen, Steve.
Well, yeah, it's in week 1, and it's not only week 1, but it's in an off season where I think the Bills have been saying, or people have been saying, hey, we got to take a little bit more off Josh Allen's plate. We need to run the ball a little bit more, or run quick game a little bit more, or not have him run every time it's 3rd and short and have him be Superman. So if the Bills are trying to rely less on Josh Allen's not getting the message. He's just like, hey, it's week 1. We're probably going to win. Doesn't matter. I'm still going to take everything on my shoulders. I get it if it's the playoffs and it's Kansas City, and but they need him healthy. They need him ready to go for the playoffs to beat Kansas City and the Bengals and the Dolphins or whoever else it is. And he's got to be able to control the situation a little bit better. Or McDermott has to step in and say, man, control the situation.
Yeah.
Than you have been.
Look, he took shots that he had no business taking. And I was wincing, and I was just sipping on a beer. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com, on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Okay, so the Jets find a way to win, and with Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles. So they got some pieces. And Zach Wilson is, what word would you use to describe him? Decent, solid? How would you describe him?
Zach Wilson?
Yeah.
The other night he was below average overall. I know the stats ended up okay, and Zach Wilson just puts a constraint on the offense. I'm still intrigued by him because I feel like he'll be better this year, and a little bit better, at least incrementally. He just has to play within structure. He's got to see it quicker. And it feels like it really hamstrings the play caller. You know, the interception that he threw, Aikman was just disgusted. I think Peyton was disgusted, both broadcasts. Why are you throwing that, Zach? After the interception, I think the stats were better for Zach Wilson, but that's because they were running screens and it was, taking the ball out of his hands. I really think Zach Wilson just puts constraints on the play caller. So if you're going to run the ball a little bit more, you got to run a little bit more screen game and just simple stuff that he doesn't have to think about. And then you just need Zach Wilson to make like 8 to 10 plays a game, 8 to 10. I mean, just like read it out and don't screw it up 8 to 10 times, where most quarterbacks that's, 25 or 30. So I think that's the problem with Zach Wilson right now is you just can't trust him to read it out and not make a bad decision or, hit the open man on time. And it's not really an accuracy thing or anything. It's just seeing the field and being on time with everything. And,
okay.
Maybe he'll be a little bit better with that, with some preparation. I'm, again, intrigued to see that. But right now, it's a challenge. Even like the touchdown to Garrett Wilson, that was a bad throw. Garrett Wilson turned that into a touchdown. So there's
he did. Wow.
Yes. And that's where our grades come in, right? We're not going to give him every other stat's going to give credit for that. We're calling that a bad throw, a miss. And Garrett Wilson gets all the credit for it, even though Zach Wilson gets the stats and the advanced stats and all that. So he just has to not lose games because that defense looks really good.
Okay, so the Jets and the Cowboys play in Dallas this weekend. 3:25 is the prime time slot, of course, with the Cowboys, and you'll get Nance and Romo. It's CBS. We're visiting with Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus. He joins us on the Out of Bounds show. The show is brought to you by your next Nissan Pathfinder at Cannon Nissan in Jackson. Cannon Nissan in Jackson. So handicap this game for me. Everybody now thinks that the Cowboys have to win every game pretty and by 30. That's not how the NFL works. Everything went against the Giants. They jumped on them. It was over early. Are you expecting a competitive, close game in Dallas this weekend with the Jets and the Cowboys?
Well, yeah, it's tough to expect what you saw Sunday night because of what you said. I mean, there's a blocked punt and there's blocked field goal for a touchdown and there's a pick six, and before you know it, the Giants are done. But I think the Cowboys defense looks legit, and the Jets offensive line has issues. And I talked about Zach Wilson's pocket presence has massive issues. I mean, he could get sacked 7 or 8 times if the Jets drop back pass and, don't run the ball. So I think the Cowboys defense can absolutely wreck the Jets up front. So they're going to have to run the ball a little bit and, try to slow the game down. And we didn't get to actually see much of the Cowboys offense. They were just playing with a lead and not doing a whole lot. And Dak's best throw was dropped, which should have been a touchdown. But
it should have been a touchdown. The yelling show should have yelled about that. I was yelling about it. That was a beautiful throw, so Steve Palazzolo.
It was. And again, PFF gives him credit for that. No one else does. So that's where, we'll see. I think it's going to be a challenge for the Dallas offense. The Jets have a really good pass rush.
They do.
Really good corners. We saw Jordan Whitehead at safety. He was Josh Allen's favorite receiver. He made the plays at safety. So, yeah, it's I'm expecting low scoring and, a bit of a battle, but the Cowboys should absolutely take care of the Jets.
But the Jets are legit on defense, right?
Yeah, they're very good. They've got 7 or 8. They're 7 or 8 deep on the defensive line, and like I said, that secondary, they've done a great job. Sauce Gardner on one side, DJ Reed on the other side, and pretty good group of safeties. Their linebackers are really active. They are. Saleh has turned around that defense over the last 2 years in New York.
Let's where do I want to go? Let's go Saints real quick because the Saints fans will get mad at me. New Orleans won. What did you make of the Saints and Derek Carr and their first game?
I thought Carr was good. I mean, my biggest takeaway is what I was optimistic about for the Saints was their playmakers coming into the season. And I think you saw that. I mean, Michael Thomas, when he's out there and healthy, is a difference maker. Chris Olave is the star that we thought. Rashid Shaheed is also a star, potentially. I mean, I loved what he did last year, always had that knack for getting behind the defense a couple times a game, and then he's the guy that they're going to on the game winner. I mean, that is, and then you throw in Jawan Johnson at tight end.
Yeah.
That is a difficult group to cover. And again, that's my strategy for winning in the NFL, which is, put all these playmakers out there, good luck, try to cover them, and let my QB distribute. And I think the Saints have that ability. Now, where I'm concerned a little bit is the offensive line. I thought Trevor Penning at left tackle had some issues. The guards had some issues. Titans have a good defensive front, but the offensive line's got to play better. But I'm very optimistic about the playmakers. And then, Derek Carr in the red zone, he wasn't great there last year with the Raiders. I thought they had some issues the other day as well. So that's what they have to shore up. And then I've always mentioned the Saints defense as having championship level ability over the last few years with Dennis Allen. And that's what we saw, turning it over from Ryan Tannehill. And, they had just some success making things difficult for the Titans pass game. So I thought it was good overall for the Saints. And I think they'll put a lot more points on the board as they figure out how to, distribute the football to all those playmakers.
Do the Saints have better skill talent than the Cowboys?
No, but I think it's comparable. I'm still.
Is it a push?
When Brandon Cooks is healthy? Yeah, it might be. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and the young tight end, Michael Gallup and the young tight end. I like that for Dallas. I like that a lot. The Saints have more potential, though, because, again, if Michael Thomas plays the whole season and Michael Thomas, Chris Olave as a 1-2 punch with Shaheed as one of the better deep threats in the NFL, it doesn't get that much better than that. They're not the Niners, but that's, it might be close.
Dang. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. Brought to you by Bulldog Burger in Ridgeland. Great place to watch the games and enjoy delicious burgers and appetizers. So, Bryce Young, I know it's his first game. Now the Saints go to Carolina. How did PFF, how did they think he performed in his first game?
It's one of those where the grade's going to be poor. It was a below average game, but I thought there was some good stuff in there from Bryce Young for sure. The two bad interceptions that he had were almost identical, where he's just not seeing a safety over the middle of the field. Now that is the issue with Bryce Young coming out, or the question coming out. He's so short. Will he see the middle of the field? And he had other good passes at the middle of the field, but these were Jesse Bates, the Falcons safety, just baited him twice. Especially the second time. And Bryce Young was trying to look him off, and he didn't get looked off, and he just threw it anyway and got picked off twice. So that's going to be the concern for Bryce Young. He's got to make better decisions there. I think it's going to be a tough eval this year for Bryce Young. I don't love that offensive line. I don't love their pass catchers. So it's going to be difficult, but you're just trying to look at what he's able to accomplish, how he's handling pressure. And overall, I thought it was fine, but there was definitely some plays he brought back in there that would affect his production grades.
Okay. And when you looked at what Sean Payton and the Broncos did over the weekend, what was your discussion inside the Pro Football Focus, brainchild as far as it's just early? And did you love the fact that he went for an onside kick to start the game?
I love that you never know when Sean Payton's going to onside kick. I mean, it was interesting because I thought early on it was like, hey, Russell Wilson looks better. He looks crisp, and maybe the corner's turned. And then it just fizzled a little bit. And then Russell Wilson became a little bit more conservative, throwing the ball underneath. And that felt like a last year Broncos game where Russ would have one or two good drives. And sometimes it would be at the beginning, sometimes it would be at the end of the game. But it was really only one or two drives of optimism. And everything else was just, meh, difficult. And that's what it ended up being. So that was a little surprising to me that at the end of the day, the offense felt like last year. There was a little bit of positive, a little bit of positive, and at the end of the day, you had 16 points. Right? That's how they did it last year. So I think they'll get better and figure it out. They've got some issues with injuries. Jerry Jeudy's coming back. I think they'll get better. But as of right now, it looks a lot like last year's Broncos.
All right, who surprised you as far as quarterback play? In a good way, not what we just went over with Joe Burrow and Josh Allen.
I thought Mac Jones played pretty well for the Patriots. I thought he did a really nice job. I thought him and Bill O'Brien, taking over the play calling, I thought was much improved from last year. And it looks more like rookie year Mac Jones. I think he's going to keep the Patriots competitive this year with that good defense. And then Tua was lights out. I mean, Tua was the best quarterback in the NFL last week. And I know Tyreek Hill's a big part of that. He's uncoverable, but Tua was throwing the ball early and accurate. And he hit that bomb on third down with the game on the line to win to put them in position to win the game. I thought Tua was sharp. He looked really good. And the Dolphins are dangerous if they keep playing like that with all that speed and Tua distributing the way he did.
Wow. Okay, one more. Do I have time? Yes. The Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone. Steve Palazzolo joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Where would you have the Dolphins? Where would you have them in your power rankings in the AFC? Top 5?
Yeah, they have a chance to be up there. If they still had Jalen Ramsey, man, I really wanted to see that. Look, I'm not writing off the Bills. I'm not done with the Bills yet. But the Dolphins have a chance to make that move, right? If Tua stays healthy, explosive offense, they have a defense that got gassed against the run, but they've got a lot of potential there on that side of the ball. Dolphins have a chance to absolutely make a run. Them and the Browns, I think, had the really impressive week one that say, hey, we got to really consider the Dolphins and Browns this year in the AFC picture.
All right, we'll leave it there. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus podcast, pff.com. They're on YouTube. They're all over the place. Check out Steve Palazzolo, also on Twitter at PFF_Steve. Thank you, buddy. We appreciate it. We'll talk next week.
All right. Thank you.
Enjoy the game tonight. Vikings at the Eagles. That's Jason's Minnesota Vikings. Against they're not my Philadelphia Eagles. I usually go there, but they are not. I like Fletcher Cox. I like Jalen Hurts. I love A.J. Brown. That guy's an absolute dude. Probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame, kind of like either Jeffrey Simmons or Chris Jones. I think Fletcher's a fringe player. We'll see. You don't ever know with the media, bias, this, that, and the other. I'm not sure which one of those three. One of those three need to get in. And then AJ needs to play his way into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That line on Caesars is -6 Eagles tonight. That sounds about right.
Yeah, I don't really trust, like I said, I don't really trust Kirk Cousins against the Eagles, so I'd go Eagles in that one. Against Big Play Slay, too.
How about that return last week?
Dude,
at 30, 3 years old?
Insane.
He looked 27 running down the field.
He looks young.
He really did.
It.
His wife's gorgeous. Big play. She is. Big play Slay with the pick 6. And Martin Emerson played well for the Browns. NFL Chuck's a happy man. Hour number 3 coming up.